The Long Dark is a first-person survival game that takes place in the Canadian wilderness after a geomagnetic disaster takes place. This disaster leaves the entire map freezing cold with limited source of food and multiple enemies like bears and wolves that want to take you out at any moment. While there are many different game modes in this game, one of the hardest is the misery mode, which makes it nearly impossible to survive. With impossible weather conditions and limited sources of food, misery mode is known as the hardest mode in the Long Dark. It is recommended for experienced players, but since I've only played it for 30 hours, I decided it was a good idea to take on misery mode for myself. I was quite nervous to start this run, also considering I have never even played Stalker or Interloper, so misery seems so challenging. But I decided to be brave and try it anyway, even though I was not very confident. I wasn't aware that misery mode started in a location you didn't pick, so I was extremely confused where I was in the beginning, and I honestly still don't even know what part of the map I'm on. But I decided to start my run by harvesting some mushrooms so we could make tea later on if I needed it. I decided to start walking in just an unknown direction and hoping for the best. Even saw some bunnies that I thought about killing, but then decided I was getting way too cold to do that. I decided to collect some stones with the thoughts of, maybe killing some bunnies in the future, and then climbed up this rope in hopes of finding some sort of shelter because my condition was getting bad really fast, already getting hypothermia risk, which if you get that, it's like basically game over because I was getting so cold so fast. Collecting sticks seemed like the smart thing to do so we could use them to make a fire later on because that would help us with temperature as well as cooking and boiling water. There was another rope, so I climbed it, and I really felt like I was going the right direction, and I was really hoping to, get up to the top and see, a perfect house with, maybe some pancakes waiting for me. Yeah, I was very wrong, because as soon as I got up that rope, I immediately ran into a whole pack of timber wolves, which was definitely not good, and I got immediately scared and had no idea what to do. This was my first ever run-in with timber wolves, and I had nothing on me but 2 stones, so I just booked it in hopes of, getting away from them. Also, not to mention, my game started, freaking out so hard with the Timberwolves, and I had to completely, take a step back from the game and shut it off because my game was lagging so bad. But eventually, I did start seeing some shelter, so I started making my way towards it in hopes of finding either some food or water or even firewood. I first stopped at this tractor because I was hoping to find either a memento, which is basically just a letter telling you where some stuff are, but there was absolutely nothing in it because of course there wasn't. So I continued to the shelter, but because it's misery, there is nothing in here. There wasn't a corpse to search, there wasn't a backpack, there was nothing. No sticks, so I just moved on. I then immediately saw a wolf and started doing this weird crouch walk that I've seen people do. I guess it worked because the wolf completely ignored me the entire time. I then saw this barn and I had really high hopes for it. I was like, maybe there'll even be a bedroll in here because in misery you spawn without a bedroll, which means you can't sleep unless you find a bed, which is really bad because if you get too tired, your condition will just continue to wear down. And we really didn't need that considering I was already freezing my ass off and starving. So, not sleeping was just, the cherry on the cake. I got inside the barn and started looking around for any sort of stuff I could take with me, like food or, really shooting for the stars and hoping for a gun. I'll be a spoiler, we did not find a gun. I started searching anything I could, but obviously found nothing because why would I find anything? No, this game wants me to literally cry. I did find a note though, and it basically just told me to plant seeds, but obviously there was no seeds, so I kind of just took the note. I then found some foreshadowing on how we are going to probably end this episode because let's be so for real, this is actually miserable. But guess what? He had nothing on him, so no wonder he was dead. But I continued to just search in hopes of finding anything. And then I found firewood, but at first I thought I was imagining it, going crazy from being so cold. I decided to hop in this truck in hopes of warming up a little bit, which I did, which is good because this is the first time our temperature has actually gone up instead of down. But guess what was in this truck? Yeah, nothing, absolutely nothing. So I got out and decided to keep searching the rest of the barn, and I was still hopeful there would maybe be something upstairs. But then my character randomly started crouching. I guess I was getting so cold, my limbs just stopped working. I don't know. But I found an emergency stim upstairs, which was actually really helpful in case I get way too tired, and searched the rest of the building. But guess what? Yeah, I didn't find anything in this area. Oh, wait. Okay, never mind. I actually got some trail boots, which is actually very helpful because I'm wearing leather boots. I don't know, maybe I'm going into the office, but the other lockers were locked and I can't use that unless I have a pry bar. And there was a workbench here, but I have no use for it yet, but it was good to note that it was there. But I kept searching and didn't find anything. Oh, goody, I can maybe go fishing. And then I found a flare gun, which is actually so helpful, but we don't have flares yet. But this will be very helpful in the future against wolves. I honestly feel so defeated, so I'm just gonna honestly leave this area. My hook and my flare gun maybe will help me eventually, but right now I'm just gonna starve. So we need to find food and water and get warm. So maybe I'll sit in here and look at my goodies. When I finally did decide to leave, I started heading towards the other buildings, hoping maybe there was something else in there, or, maybe an arrow pointing towards some water, really shooting for anything at this point because this is actually not going so hot for me. But there was nothing else in these buildings, but I ended up seeing a road, so I decided to go ahead and get on it and follow it in hopes of finding maybe a building or two, maybe a house. On my way to the road, I did see a wolf, so I decided to do the crouch walk again since it didn't do me dirty last time. And I was genuinely terrified, even though it was like 60 feet away from me, but I crouched the entire way to the road. I ended up getting in this car getting distracted by the light. Sorry, thought maybe it was food. I'm going delusional. But I got in the car and found, nothing, not even a note in the visors. I kept following the road and decided to go left, and was really hoping I didn't pick the wrong direction, because if I did, it would actually mean death, because I had gotten frostbite risk, which if we get frostbite, that would be really, really bad, because we don't have time to rest, because we need to find food and water. I followed the bridge and kept looking for shelter, but wasn't seeing any. I found another vehicle, so I decided to look in it in hopes of finding anything, but I'm gonna let you know right now, we found absolutely nothing inside this truck. I then saw a little house peeking over the hill, and I got really excited, so I started heading towards the building in hopes of, maybe finding a bed or some shelter for the night. But instead of shelter, I actually found a bunch of wolves, and I just started getting so scared. Luckily, I think he was just as scared of me, which was weird. He didn't take a bite out of me, but I just started crouching and running, and then I finally booked it to the rest of the way to the door and felt like 10 times better once I was inside. I had never been in this building before, so I was very interested to see what they had. Obviously there was nothing in there. Maybe there'll be something in here. Wait, yep, no, nothing, nothing at all, not even another hook. I was very thankful, though, to find a few beds, because that meant we had somewhere to sleep for the night. I was also hoping that there might be something in the kitchen or maybe a bottle of water. So I decided to look around the whole area just to be very thorough about it, because one thing could literally change the whole game. I didn't find anything in the fridge, but I was very confident in the freezer. But no, I decided to stay optimistic in hopes of finding anything, and then finally we found our first item that was actually useful, which was tomato soup, which meant we had dinner for the night. I continued to search the whole kitchen, not really finding anything, and then finally found some painkillers, which was very helpful in case we got bit by a wolf or anything drastic happened. We had some medicine. I then started looking for a bathroom, hopefully finding one so that we could get some water, and then I took all the water from this toilet and I was going to drink it with absolutely no shame in the world. But this meant that we had water and food, which meant that we could at least survive a day or two. I then decided to be very brave and go back outside in hopes of finding another building. Even though there were still wolves out there, I was pretty confident that I could avoid them. I started taking anything I could, including books, to start fires later on, but since we didn't have any matches yet, no matter what we found, we couldn't really start a fire until we found matches. I then just did a quick sweep over the whole building before actually thoroughly searching just to see if there was anything extremely useful. but I didn't really find much. I did take all the water from this toilet as well, meaning we had at least 3 liters, which is very good because that could last us at least a day or two. And then I searched the whole bathroom, but once again, didn't really find much of anything. I was also really hoping to find some more clothes because we were not getting protected from the cold or the wind, which could be very, very harmful. It also meant that I couldn't stay outside for long, but since I didn't have any food or water, it made it where I really need to be outside and I need to be exploring. So I was hoping to find some clothes, but we didn't find anything because, I don't know, this is misery mode and it's actually booty horrible. Like, this place actually is hurting me. But, I decided to take the books because I was really hopeful I would find at least a match so I could have at least, a little bit of fire. I guess I decided to look at the fire, like, feeling optimistic that I would have a match on me for some reason, but no, I didn't. Then I decided to search the entire kitchen and decided to sit there and continue to find absolutely nothing. I then left this building and decided I was going to go search another one and decided to brave the cold for a little bit. This is genuinely so embarrassing. I saw fresh produce and I was like, maybe there'll be like an apple here for me to eat. Yeah, no, I'm gonna let you guess right now. This is miserable and I found nothing in there. So I decided to keep on going to the next building. This one was one of those weird buildings that has like normally nothing in it. I did find a piece of cloth, which would be helpful if I had a sewing kit, but guess what? I don't. So I can't really do anything with it yet. And then the rest of the building was completely barren, so I just decided to leave. After searching a few vehicles, I made my way towards the church, and I actually had high hope for this one, thinking there would maybe be a few things in here. It is a beautiful building, but that's really all it was. I found a few more books, and I did find tea, which would be very, very helpful if I could boil water and make the tea, but I can't, so I just have tea now. And then search this backpack, which ended up being completely empty. Are you surprised? Because I'm not. Decided to take all the books and stacks of papers in case I was dying and got bored and decided to read the Bible. But other than that, I really found nothing else in here, but eventually when we found matches, we would have plenty of stuff to make a fire, which is good because, when that happens, it would be like, I'll cry, like tears of joy. But I decided to leave the church because I found really nothing else in there. Since my condition was getting so bad, I decided to head back to the warmest building and call it a night and let my character get some sleep. So that was me attempting the long, dark misery mode, and it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But if you did enjoy this, let me know down in the comments, and I will continue to make more episodes. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.